Good morning and welcome to Mini Storage Messenger's Self-Storage Webinar Series. I'm Poppy Behrens, publisher of Minico Incorporated, and we're delighted to have you in the audience today. For those of you who haven't joined us before, this is one of several informative webinars planned for self-storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. The sponsor of today's webinar is Lodi, California-based Litton Property Management, and we're pleased to welcome back our presenter, Tom Litton, who's a well-known self-storage industry expert. Tom heads Litton Property Management and the Self-Storage Management Division of Litton Management and Consulting. Tom began his career in the self-storage industry when self-storage was still in its infancy, and he has managed over 150 self-storage facilities in 11 states during his career. He currently manages and/or owns 21 commercial properties in Indiana and California, and also fee manages and consults on a daily basis in the United States, Australia, New Zealand, France, England, Scotland, and Canada. Tom has conducted over 150 seminars worldwide on various topics regarding self-storage operations, management, development, and ownership. His latest books, Auditing Self-Storage, Preventing Employee Theft and Embezzlement, and The Key to Success, How to Manage Self-Storage, are available from Minico Publishing. 2009 marks the 30th anniversary for Mini Storage Messenger, the original voice of the self-storage industry. Each issue of Messenger provides readers with in-depth news and information. Its cover stories and feature articles explore the most timely industry topics and trends, and in addition, monthly columns contributed by industry experts and accomplished business professionals address a wide range of topics including security, facility operations, technology, legal issues, legislative updates, construction, and development. We also publish a variety of other self-storage data sources, such as those you see on your screen. For more information, visit ministoragemessenger.com, where you can find out about all of those publications. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. We invite you to submit questions throughout the webinar. To do so, all you need to do is type your question into the question area and click send. We'll try to answer as many of those questions as we can during the Q&A period at the end of the webinar. However, those that cannot be answered due to time constraints will be answered by Tom by way of email once the webinar has closed. Today's presentation should run about 45 minutes, with the remainder of the hour open to questions and answers. And now it's my distinct pleasure to welcome back Tom. Good morning, Tom.
Hi, Poppy. How are you?
Good, good.
You know, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this webinar, but I want to applaud you for doing the very thing that you need to be doing given the state of the economy right now, and that is focusing on your business, because self-storage has changed over the years, and we've seen quite a bit of changes as of late, primarily due to the downturn in the economy. But it's not something that you want to fear. You know, almost every storage facility in the United States, much less the world, has actually seen some increase in vacancy at their facilities. So what I wanted to talk about today was how to use not only your website to improve your phone sales, but to also discuss some basics in phone sales. So let's just move ahead and let's focus on a couple of things that I think are sort of troubling right now. One of the things that we've seen, especially in the last year, is that customers are beginning to reevaluate their decisions to store. Now, this has really sort of happened more in the last 12 to 16 months. But what's happened is customers have actually evaluated the items that they had in storage, and they decided that the items that they were storing weren't actually worth the amount of rent that they were spending to store those items each month. So many of those customers have reevaluated that decision to store, and they've actually left us, and they probably won't be back for a number of years. So that's somewhat of a troubling trend. Over the years, we've always known that this day would come where customers would make that conscious decision that the value of the items that they're storing is probably not worth the rent that they're spending on it. So, and like I said, in about the last year, many of those customers that have left you have been satisfied with their storage experience, but they've left because of this reevaluation. So right now, foreclosures are at an all-time high, and I think everyone knows this just from listening to the news every day. But in the short term, that's really good for self-storage. So many facilities have experienced a sort of a short-term uptick in terms of rented units versus vacancies. But it's bad for self-storage in the long term, because for so many years we've relied on on customers that actually elected to store. So currently about 51% of your customers actually elect to use self-storage as opposed to customers that are storing from you because they have to store. People that are storing because they have to store are customers that are storing basically everything they own or everything that they just recently moved out of their homes while they're in this state of transition. So we've seen sort of a loss in occupancy, and it's not something to be fearful of, but it's something that you're going to have to focus a lot of time and attention on. So facilities are losing occupancy. If you're sitting there thinking to yourself, maybe we're doing something wrong, that's not the problem. Facilities nationwide, if not worldwide for that matter, are losing occupancy because of the changing dynamics that we're seeing in our economy. Failed banks and tight credit will cause ripples in our industry for several more years, which means that new construction has stopped. Now that's actually good news for those of us that are already in the storage business and we're already deeply entrenched. I have a friend of mine that sells new individual door alarm systems and security systems for self-storage. And my friend told me that just as an example, in the state of California, where each year for about the last 10 successive years, he has been selling anywhere from 50 to 75 systems each year. This year, 2009, he's only sold one system for the entire year. So anyone that's in and around self-storage knows that new construction has stopped. For those of us that are in the business, this is good news because we no longer have new facilities popping up on every corner. Bad news is that refinancing is now very difficult because of jitters in the credit market. So if your owner needs to refinance right now, they're going to find that very difficult to do, which means there's going to be more pressure on trying to maintain our occupancies. And chances are we're going to struggle for at least the next 5 years. And then lastly, the good times that we've had in the past has sort of fostered a state of complacency, especially in customer service and salesmanship. Because in the past, all we really had to do was just answer the telephone, do a halfway decent job of conveying information, and the customers would seek us out. But today, you have to be a salesman and you have to be a marketer to just survive in this industry. So what are our primary problems in terms of sales and marketing? Well, one of the problems that I see and that I hear every day on the telephone in my travels, because I do consulting almost every single day, I visit storage facilities every single day of the week, and I deal with customers on a daily basis, and I help solve problems at my own facilities that I own as well as the facilities that I manage. And one of the problems that I see and hear is that there's a focus on just price, price, price. So many of my own managers are telling me that customers are calling around and they're asking for specials, they're asking for deals, and it's because when there's a downturn in the economy, and this has always been true in the storage business, that managers have a tendency to focus on price and price alone. Now, pricing has become our primary focus instead of salesmanship, value, and service. And I can tell you from many years of experience in this industry that though pricing is important, customers today still want to hear good salesmanship, but more importantly, they want value and they want service. Now, in the past, our selling skills have gotten rusty due to the good times. So many storage managers are having a difficult time in refocusing and bringing their customer service skills and their selling skills back up again. So what we're going to do today is to spend some time and some effort on trying to bring it back to the basics. But I'm also going to show you a different twist on how to harness technology. And by focusing on price, we have commoditized self-storage space. We see this oftentimes in our economy where there's a focus on price, and so customers begin seeing whatever that commodity is as just being a homogeneous product that is exactly the same no matter where you go, and as a result, price tends to be the only focus factor on which people make their decisions. So that's happened not because every storage facility in America is alike, but it's happened because through our salesmanship, or at least our attempt at salesmanship, we have now commoditized self-storage. So what is the correct long-term strategy? Well, folks, it's now time to focus on sales and marketing. And I mean sales and marketing, sales and marketing, sales and marketing every single day. As an industry, we're pretty good at the nuts and bolts, but we have a tendency to sort of pushed sales and marketing to the back burner because in the past it wasn't as important. But when the economy plummets and people are pinching their pennies and you've got those valuable phone calls coming in every day, but you have far less than you used to have, you have to become more customer service oriented. So when I talk to customers that rent from me at my facilities, I'm rarely the cheapest facility in the market, but yet at many of my facilities we've been able to maintain a high level of occupancy. And when I ask the customers why you chose us over the 2 or 3 or 4 other facilities that you called, they oftentimes say it's because I liked your manager on the telephone and you sound like you're customer service oriented. So customers still want value for their money and they still want to be treated well. So that's something that we don't want to forget. You need to become more involved in the day-to-day activities of your facilities, which means you've got to focus on marketing all the time, all the time. My managers and I actually speak every single week now on marketing, on our strategies, how many phone calls we're getting, what we're saying over the telephone, and we're constantly changing our approach, and we're constantly changing our strategies when we're dealing with people over the telephone. So when the economy falters, you have to focus more time and attention on marketing if you want to survive. The other thing that I've done, which has worked very well, is I've been able to harness technology, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes how I did that. You need to find a friend, a close, trusted competitor, because oftentimes what happens is that you're operating in the blind and you may be losing occupancy and you don't really know why. You don't know whether it's a customer service problem. You don't know if it's a sales problem. I would encourage you to go out and find a close, trusted competitor, strike up a friendship, and agree that the two of you are going to keep each other informed on the trends in the community. Because if you stay focused on the trends that are developing in the community, then you know whether or not your marketing efforts are working. So for example, if you find out that a close competitor is also losing occupancy at the same time you are, you know that it's not a result of poor salesmanship on the telephone, or it's the result of poor marketing strategies. It's more market-driven than anything else. So find a friend in your community, a close competitor, a trusted competitor, and encourage them to share information with you so that you can create a benchmark for where you are. It's now time to work really hard. I mean, the bottom line is that in sales and marketing, seminars, webinars, convention topics, whatever it happens to be, the reality is that if you want to fill up a storage facility, especially in troubled times, you have to work hard, and that's just all there is to it. You have to try new things. And one of the things that we have a tendency to do in self-storage, especially those of us that manage storage facilities and that answer the telephone, is that we have a tendency to become myopic, and we oftentimes don't try new things because we're not looking for new things. So I want to show you a couple of things today that are new, but I want to encourage you to think outside the box, to look at other industries, and to start thinking about new things that you can try. A good way to start is to actually look at other industries to see what's really working well for them. Now, there's always been a need for salesmanship in the self-storage business. I started in this business in the late 60s. And in those days, when you answered the telephone, you could answer the telephone. Matter of fact, my parents had a facility back then called Oracle Self-Storage, and my dad would answer the phone, and the customer would say, do you have a storage unit? And my dad would say, yes, I have 3 different sizes. Here they are. Which one do you want? And they would say, how about the 10 by 10? And he'd quote them a price, and then he would say, you better hurry up and get your butt down here. And so that old selling style worked then because there weren't as many storage facilities competing in any market. So the days of price quoting only are over. You can't survive that way. A non-aggressive approach, a come-and-get-it philosophy doesn't work in self-storage anymore. Why? Because customers are stressed economically, so they're going to shop around. They're going to look for the best value for the money. So to be successful today in any self-storage market, anywhere in the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, France, Ireland, it doesn't matter. You have to have a new counseling style. So when customers call on the telephone, you want to use the technology that you have, which is primarily your website, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean. But you also want to engage in what's called multidimensional selling. But more importantly, you have to become the self-storage consultant. Now, We do more things today than we've ever done before in this industry in terms of sales and marketing. We have websites. We have free move-in trucks. We take credit cards. We can automatically debit those for you. You can go online. You can pay your own bill. So there are so many things that happen today in self-storage that we didn't do even 10 years ago, much less 20 and 30 years ago. So the successful self-storage marketer today has to become a self-storage consultant, and it's that consultative selling style that works. So let me ask you, what is the goal of the phone call? Many managers, when I ask them this question, will say, well, the goal is to get them to rent a storage space. And I say, well, yes, partially that's the goal. But the reality is that we want to get them to visit the storage facility. Many of my managers have said to me over the years, they say, Tom, if I can just get them down here, the facility sells itself. Or if I could just get them down here, I won't let them leave until they rent a storage space. And the problem is that most managers have a misplaced idea of what the goal of the phone call is. Many managers think that the goal of the phone call is to sell the storage space over the telephone, and that's not it. The goal is to get customers to visit the facility, and you're going to try to motivate them from calling and stopping calling other storage facilities and to choose service over shopping, because when customers call multiple storage facilities, one after another, it's because they believe that self-storage is a commodity, and that the only litmus test of whether or not you have the right storage facility is whether or not it's the cheapest. And of course, we all know that that's not necessarily true, because if it were true, every storage facility in town that was the cheapest would be full and all the other facilities would be empty. So storage customers choose storage facilities for a whole host of reasons. So the second primary goal of the call is to stop that customer from calling around and to choose service over shopping. And then number three is you want to get the customer to interact and bond with you. We've seen over the years that if the customer interacts and bonds with you, they have a tendency to choose you over another facility. I can't tell you how many times as a self-storage owner and operator, I've asked customers in my offices, why did you choose us over everyone else in town? And almost universally, without fail, they almost always say, I liked your people, or I liked Susan, or I liked Tracy when she answered the telephone. Customers always report to me that it's the interaction and the bonding that actually motivated them to rent, even though we are rarely the cheapest storage space in the market. So I don't want to underplay this, because getting the customer to interact and bond with you is critically important. So could you buy a saddle over the telephone? I think, Poppy, you're still on the line, aren't you? No? Okay. Could you buy a saddle over the telephone? It's a good question. I have a friend of mine that has a saddle company, and he custom builds saddles.
I am here, Tom. I just had to unmute myself so I wasn't interrupting you.
Okay. Well, hey, I'll address this to you, Poppy, because you're so you're well versed in this area. Do you think you could buy a saddle over the telephone?
No, only if it was from, I work with a custom saddle maker that does Civil War saddles for us, and he's done them for us before, so he knows our horses. That's the only way I would do it.
Right. See, Poppy is a different type of purchaser. Poppy has specific knowledge about saddles, about horses, about horsemanship. Now, it's possible that Poppy could buy a saddle over the telephone, though improbable. The reality is if Poppy were to call a saddle company and she started asking questions and things like, what does the saddle look like, and how tall is the horn, and what about the fenders? Can you make the fenders extra wide for some reason? They might be able to answer those questions, but bottom line is they're going to say to Poppy that you're just going to have to come down and you're going to have to look at my saddles. Now, what's interesting is that customers actually buy things, no matter what it is, through their five senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. It's called multidimensional selling. And in the past, we always thought that that people wouldn't buy things off the internet, for example, because they couldn't actually see them, they couldn't taste them, they couldn't touch them, they couldn't smell them. And so one of the first indictments, if you will, of the internet is that selling things via the internet probably won't be very successful. And wow, was everyone wrong about that? And it's because with the internet, something interesting happens. It's the ability to use what we call multi-dimensional salesmanship. So when you call someone on the telephone and you're asking them if they have saddles, and they say yes, and what kind of saddles do you have, and they may reel off 4, 5, 10 different saddles that they have, and you start talking about pricing. The problem is that you can only hear about saddles. What the website does is it gives the person the ability to actually see the saddles if you use the website as a reference. So I have a friend of mine, Poppy, that his name's Steve Riccati, and he has a company where he makes custom saddles, and he ships them all over the world. And so his actual shop and store is in a little teeny tiny postage stamp town here in California. And if you were to call him on the telephone, in the early days he would get really frustrated with you and say, look, you're just going to have to come down and look at the saddles. But then he learned that by creating a website and using the website as a reference tool, he could direct someone to the website. And as a result, he could appeal to both senses. So the person could see what they were talking about, but then they could also hear what they were talking about at the same time. When you appeal to both senses, you're actually far more effective. As a matter of fact, there was a study published not too long ago that said that if you're talking to someone on the telephone and you're trying to sell them, and you can get them to go to your website and see what you're talking about, you'll be almost 300% more effective if you do so. So initially we say to ourselves, could we really buy a saddle over the telephone? Well, if you went to Steve's website, and I'll just show you some of the saddles that he makes and that he sells. Poppy has an appreciation for this because she's a horse person.
You're trying to get me in trouble looking at these pictures.
Yeah, horseman. But, for example, if you look at the 6 saddles in this illustration, you've got your roping saddle in the upper left-hand corner. You've got 2 trail saddles on the top row. You've got a roping saddle. You've got an Australian deep saddle, and then you have a cutting saddle. Now, Poppy can tell you that all of these saddles have different uses. They have different features, and they have different benefits. If my friend Steve were talking to Poppy over the telephone, and he directed her to the website, and said, well, why don't you go to this page? And he literally directed her right through the website and got her to the page where you see that roping saddle in the upper left-hand corner. He could actually show her the various colors of leather that are there. He could show her the style of the stirrup. He could show her the fenders. He could show her the straps, everything that she would ever want to know. She could actually see that saddle on the computer and then talk about it at the same time. The likelihood of her being able to make a decision on buying a saddle over the telephone now has escalated by at least 300%. So what we try to do now in self-storage is to use this same technique when we attempt to sell over the telephone. Now, you cannot sell storage space over the telephone with a person just simply listening to you. They might listen to you, they might wind up renting from you, but that's not where selling occurs. Selling occurs when you use a multi-dimensional plan, which I'll show you in a minute. Too many storage facilities attempt to sell over the telephone. And what they do is they spout off the prices. Most storage facilities use sort of a standard script, which I'll show you in a minute. But they go through this script, they spout off some prices, they all basically say the same thing, they all make this half-hearted effort to make the customer feel like they're welcome to come down and look, and then they say thank you for calling and they hang up the phone. And the reality is that type of selling on the telephone makes everyone sound equal, which is what customers already believe about our product as it is. And it's because most managers only focus on price. And this reinforces in the consumer's mind that price is the only consideration, because that's what everyone tends to focus on, especially now. So to be more effective, you must interact with your customer on the telephone by effectively using your web page. And of course, I'm assuming that you have one, and if you don't, you sure need to get one quick. So how important are the yellow pages to the self-storage industry? Well, this question comes up every year. The self-storage industry is number 17 out of 4,200 classifications in those yellow page books floating all around the United States. And we're the 17th largest advertiser in total revenue spent on advertising, and it's because storage facilities have traditionally relied on the yellow pages as being the primary source of marketing our product. The website, however, the internet, has quickly overtaken yellow pages as a primary source of advertising. Some facilities report as much as 65% of their customers are coming from their websites. And it's because we have so many search engines out there that you can spider and register your website on, that many customers are actually now going to the internet first, and they're not even bothering to pick up the Yellow Page book. So creating a website for yourself, one that actually works, and that one that you can then marry with your ability to sell over the telephone, is going to be how you're going to be more successful in the future. You're going to spend less money on Yellow Pages. You're going to spend more money on internet advertising via your website. Now, that being said, what about the Yellow Pages? Well, 88% of all storage customers call you first. Now, that could be that they see you on the internet, and then they call you on the telephone, or they see you on the internet, and they find you in the Yellow Pages. Doesn't matter, but 88% of all storage customers call you on the telephone first. Only 12% of our customers just pop into the office. Of those people, 93% of them follow up with action. So very few people abandon the idea of storing. Only 24% of customers call with a particular facility in mind. Those are customers that have driven by your storage facility for years and years and years, and more often than not live less than 1 mile away. Storage customers assume that all storage facilities are alike, and it's because we sound alike. We have the same names. We all have a tendency to say the same litany of things on the telephone. The typical customer calls looking for the lowest price because they don't know any better. Only 1 out of 7 customers has ever used self-storage before. 13% of the population will use you if you're the cheapest. 17% of the population will choose you if you're the highest price. And the remaining 70% will choose you if they like you and that you convey value over the telephone when you're doing your presentation. Now, who uses self-storage? Well, this hasn't changed much, but we've seen sort of a dramatic shift. 67% of your customers are storing residential items. 74%, by the way, are owners. That's why we've lost some occupancy in the last few years, because we've lost homeowners. 49% of your customers are on the move. That's why free move-in trucks work so well, and they should be on your website, by the way. 47% of your customers stay less than 6 months. 53% of your customers stay longer than 6 months. What we're starting to see now is that the average tenant stay is becoming shorter because we've lost many of those customers that were just storing mindlessly year after year after year. They were storing things that was of little value, but yet they were continuing to store those. Only 15% of the population knows how to use self-storage. And then there are those who elect to use self-storage, and those people are actually leaving, and they probably won't be back for a long time. Those are the people, and you've heard them walk into your office and say, I don't know why I've stored this stuff for all these years. It's Christmas decorations. It's not $100 worth of stuff in that unit. You guys have done a great job, but I'm moving out. So we're losing some of those people, and that's also contributing to some of the vacancy factor that we're all experiencing. Now, in terms of how customers behave, we have what we call the calling chain. And the calling chain is where customers pick up the Yellow Pages and they flip through the Yellow Pages, or they find you on various websites or search engines, and they believe that if you have a big ad, that you're probably a better storage facility. What's interesting is those same customers think that if you have a snazzy, professional-looking website, you're probably a better storage facility too. The average customer calls anywhere from 2 to 7 facilities, but you have to look at the breakdown. Anywhere from 4 to 7 facilities, whereas men average 2 to 3. But yet 66% of your callers are female. And then callers begin at the front of your Yellow Page section, and they leave after the second or the third phone call. Males and females, when they use the internet, they have a tendency to use search engines like Google. They have a tendency to look for storage facilities in their local community, and they have a tendency to be impressed by those storage facilities that have snazzy, sharp-looking websites that have real function. So there's some questions that we need to discuss. First is that 30% of your callers will choose you because they're close to your store regardless of price. Those are the customers that generally live less than a mile from your facility, and they drive right by your storage facility every day. Those are the type of customers that you may or may not need to offer any type of discounts or concessions to. Most customers call today, but yet they don't rent for 2 to 15 days after they call. And what that means is that gives you more than enough time to put information in their hands, because customers are impressed by receiving immediate information. And one of the best ways to do that is to direct them to your website during the phone call, or to send them a brochure via email. You can take any brochure. Your printer can do this for you. They can take the brochure and convert it to a PDF file, and you can send that out to every single customer that will give you an email address, which means you have to ask for an email, and you're going to use it and use it and use it. In other words, during that presentation, you should always ask for an email address, and if they give you an email address, you use it and you follow up on it. Even after the customer rents a storage space from someone else, it's beneficial to find out why they chose that facility rather than choosing you. Now, over the years, we've taken this approach to answering the telephone. I call it the 5 steps to greater sales skills. And it's pretty simple. And if you look at most of the shopping reports of all the shopping companies in the self-storage industry, they all follow this basic, simple format. You have a greeting. You start asking questions. You counsel the customer about your facility, its features, and its benefits. You invite them down to rent the storage space, and then you close out the call. Standard format that's used everywhere. When we go through this process, we have a tendency to use a standardized greeting, which works very well. We take control by asking questions. Why? Because most customers actually call the facility. You use your standard greeting, and then a customer will have some opening question like, do you have storage spaces for rent? Or do you have any 10 by 10 storage spaces? And what most managers do is they will ask another question back, and they'll take control of the conversation by asking some qualifying questions. Then we move to what's called the counseling stage, and this is where you tell about your property. Now, what I want to encourage you to do is to actually show the property via your website, and we'll look at that in just a minute. So the invitation stage is where you actually invite the customer to visit the storage facility, and you'll use a host of techniques to motivate them to actually come down and visit the property, because we all know that if they visit the facility, they have a high probability of renting. And then we have what we call the close, which is where we professionally close out the conversation. So in terms of the greeting, there's nothing magical, nothing mystical about the greeting, other than we recommend that you let the phone ring twice. You try to create a positive first impression by having a professional sounding greeting. And then you want to be ready to sell with features and benefits. But remember, the goal of that phone call is to get the customer to visit your store or your website. That's the goal in the greeting. So we use a standardized greeting. The most common one that you'll hear in the self-storage industry is good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for calling. You like it, you lose it, or whatever your storage facility is called. How may I help you? How may we help you? It doesn't really matter. What you want to do is to use some common words in your greeting before you say the name of your facility. You want to sound professional, and you want to give the customer time to tune into your voice and speech pattern. Now, the inquiry stage is where we take control of the conversation by asking questions. And the reason we do that is we want to qualify their needs, and at the same time we want to build rapport. And then we want to pinpoint their specific needs by asking questions, because oftentimes customers will slowly reveal what their needs are if you ask more than just one question. And then you want to ask for the customer's name, and then you want to use it sparingly throughout the phone call. And then there are 5 questions that you can literally ask every customer. And these are who, when, where, what, and why type questions. If I have a customer on the phone that tells me that they're a business versus a homeowner, I know that businesses stay longer. I know that if I offer free shelving, that I can earn the cost of that free shelving back, because business tenants have a tendency to stay longer. If a person says I need a storage space today versus next month, that tells me I have time to send the customer information, whereas if they need a storage space today, I'm going to push harder for a reservation. If a customer says I'm just around the corner, I know they have a high probability of renting from me versus someone that's across town. If a person says I'm just storing junk out of my garage versus a person that says I'm storing my entire home, if they're just going to store garage junk, I may put them in a space that I can offer a discount or a concession on because it's back in the corner of the facility, or it's got a pole in the middle of the floor or whatever, versus a person that's storing their entire home. I'm going to put them in possibly climate control space. And then if a person says I'm being evicted versus I'm new to town, then that speaks volumes about the type of customer that they may wind up being, or the type of strategy that you may want to use. So there are open-ended questions that begin with what, when, who, where, and why, and how. So can you give me an idea of what you'll be storing? When will you be needing storage? How will you be getting your items here? This is really critical if you have a free move-in truck. And where are you located? So these are just standard inquiring questions. Close-ended questions begin with did, can, have, do, is, will, and would. So do you have any large or bulky items? Can your couch be stood on end? Have you ever used self-storage before? And my personal favorite, would you like a regular or climate-controlled space? Now what happens is when you ask those inquiring questions, you get to a point where you need to ask the customer whether or not they have access to the internet. Now interestingly enough, 1 out of 3 customers have access to the internet when they call you. They're either sitting in their office or they're sitting at home, and so most homes now have not only high-speed internet access, but they have the computer on. They usually leave it on 24 hours a day. So it's actually quite easy to get customers to do this. So what I'd like to do is to ask Rebecca to pull up a website, and I want to take you on a tour of a website and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, this is a website. It's one of my facilities called Fort Security Self-Storage, and it's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The manager actually designed this website himself. Now, he has a college degree in website design. He did a wonderful job on it. His name is Matt. His contact information is down at the bottom of the page. But Matt, he did a brilliant job in designing this website because we laid it out in such a way that it actually enhances our ability to sell on the telephone. So I'll just give you just a quick tour. Now, what you would do with your website is you would have the customer go to the website, and you would obviously give them the website address. In this particular case, if you want to go back and look at this website after the webinar, it's www.fortsecurityselfstorage.com. And so if you go to this website, it's not an expensive website. It didn't cost that much to create. But I'm going to show you some things. You see the home button. This is the page that we're on now. The About Us, the security, the images, the spaces, the location, and the Contact Us. All of those links on the web page are designed to follow the same format that we use when we sell customers on the phone or sell them on our facility. Now, what I'd like to do is to show you some neat things that Matt did with this website. So when we have the customer on the phone, we get them to this website, and we verify that they're looking at the right one. And we say, look, I'm going to show you some things about our facility and about our website. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a for sale sign. If you click on that, that's our classified ads section. And what we allow our customers to do is if they want to market their business or if they have something that they want to sell, similar to Craigslist, you can actually go to our classified ads. You can put a classified ad on our website for free if you're our customer. And so it's really kind of a nice way to, to list things that you want to get rid of. Or if you're in a painting business or you're a massage therapist, it's one more place where you can get some exposure on the internet. It doesn't cost you anything. We also have free online payments. Now, if you look in that upper right-hand corner where it says login, once you become a customer, we set you up with an account, and you can visit our website anywhere in the world, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can change your address, you can change your user ID and your password, you can pay your rent, you can look at your account balance, you can do that at anywhere that you have an internet connection. And then if you look down the page, we've also created a place where you can sign up for our free email newsletter. You can see it looks like a postage stamp with an @ symbol on it. If you click on that, you can sign up for our free newsletter. We also have Twitter installed on this page so that if you're into Twitter, we actually tweet almost every day with little things that are going on at the facility. If you put us on your follower list, if you're a follower of our Twitter account, then if we have specials, if we have discounts, if we have a sale on our merchandise, you'll automatically get a tweet from us each time that happens. If you look down at the bottom of the page where it says live chat, that live chat allows you to contact us anytime our office is open, and you can discuss with our manager anything you'd like to discuss, your account balance, the use of our free move-in truck. All of that can be done via live chat, and it's available anytime our office is open. And then we tell the customer we also have coupons online. If you want to print this coupon out and bring it in, we can give you $20 off your first month's rent. All you have to do is just view our coupon. We do change those periodically. And so we take the customer and we show them around our website. Now, just as a side note, the live chat feature, the Twitter feature, and at the top of the page, the feature for the classified ads. Those are all free software programs that your webmaster can use and integrate that into the design of your website, and it's absolutely free. It's open source code, and it's open for everyone to use for free. If you want to know more about that, you can always speak with Matt by clicking at the bottom of the page, and Matt can either design a web page for you, or he can talk to your webmaster and tell them, where they can find this free software to use in the design of your own website. So what we then do is we move to the About Us button, and I'll pull that up real quick and show it to you. It's a little slower when we're on a webinar like this. The About Us page is the page that I use when I'm talking to customers on the telephone. And what I do is I talk about the features and the benefits, and while I'm talking to them, I actually use this as my own mental checklist. Because what we did is we put our free move-in truck and a lot of our features and benefits, and I actually work my way down this list by telling customers that we're open 6 days a week. We have unlimited gate access hours. We have a huge variety of sizes that are available. All of our units are ground-level drive-up storage spaces, which is not true at all the storage facilities in Fort Wayne. We have free moving carts. We don't require deposits, month-to-month rental, and we also have climate-controlled spaces. And then oftentimes I'll go into an explanation of what climate control means. We'll talk about accepting your shipments at the storage facility. We sell a complete line of packing and moving supplies. So what happens is this About page winds up sort of being your checklist, if you will, of some of the positive features and benefits about your facility. It also has the office hours on there. And then once again, we also have the live chat button that's available too. If you go back up to the top of the page, we then talk to the customer about some of the things that they've told us about the size of space that they might be interested in. So what we do is we direct them to the Spaces page. Now what the Space page does is it allows us to show the customer the very first illustration, which is our climate-controlled building, and we show them what that looks like. And of course, we've probably already talked to them briefly about climate control. We have a pretty good idea of what size space that they're interested in. So we then go down and we direct the customer to, for example, let's say a 10 by 30 storage space. So we have the customer click on the wireframe, and we have a picture that actually pops up, and it shows them what a 10 by 30 storage space actually looks like. We tell the customer that the box that you see at the back of this space is a standard medium moving box, and so we try to give them some perspective on how big a 10 by 30 is. Sometimes the customer will say, well, that looks a little bit too big, so we'll say, well, let's do this. Let's look at a 10 by 20. Maybe that'll work for you. So we'll click on that wireframe illustration. It will then pull up a picture of a 10 by 15 or a 10 by 20 space, for example, and it gives them a better perspective. So we'll ask the customer to close that out. We'll move them back up to the top of the page, and then we'll tell the customer, we'll ask the customer if they know where we're located. And the customer says, yeah, I think I know where you're located. So then we have the customer click on the location button, and then we explain to them that we're at 2208 Contractors Way for right off exit 111B, which is off Interstate 69. And then we also have an aerial photograph or a Google Earth photo that actually shows where the storage facility is located. So we confirm that they know exactly where we're located. And then we take them back to the top of the page. And in most cases, we'll encourage them to either make a reservation right then, or we will offer to make a reservation for them. And so sometimes customers will say, well, I'm thinking about it. I've got a couple of other places I'd like to call. So we'll try to get their email address from them at this point, and or we'll encourage them to simply make a reservation. Sometimes we'll just make the reservation for them right over the telephone. So what we try to do is we try to get the customer involved by actually looking and seeing what we're talking about, instead of using this one-dimensional approach of trying to convince a person to rent a storage space over the telephone. Oftentimes, we'll bring them back to the home page, and then we'll tell them that they can actually save this as a favorite, or they can add that to their favorites so that they can find it again in the future. So we take them on a quick tour of the website and give them an opportunity to sort of interact. It's amazing how effective this actually is, and We find that customers that allow us to do this almost always rent, and we go through the website step by step, but we try to move through it quickly so that the customer sees that we have a lot of services that we offer and we have a lot of conveniences built right into the website. So get your customer to your website, obviously, if you have one. And if you need additional information, you can always look at the bottom of that website and you can contact Matt, and he can help you on some of these little free software programs that you can integrate into your website to make it more workable. So at that point, we're going to say to the customer, from the information you've given me, it sounds like your things will fit in either a 10 by 10, possibly a 10 by 15, and we'll quote the prices to them on the telephone at that time. Now remember, if they went to your website, they actually got to see what a 10 by 10 and a 10 by 15 look like, which is very effective. So always quote the size you think they need and one size smaller. Try to use familiar phrases and uncomplicated sentences. Think about the words that you use, like space versus room. We like to use room rather than space, especially when we're on the telephone. I like to use humor to personalize the conversation. For example, if a customer says, do you have a problem with mice? I say, no, ma'am, if they don't have a code to the gate, they don't get in. And so I'll try to use humor in the conversation if I can. Don't be afraid to explain that all storage facilities are not alike. This is already evident just by the fact that you've actually taken them on this wonderful tour of your own website, and then learn how to sell climate control. So those of you that have climate control, I want to touch on a couple of quick things. First, don't oversell climate control. It makes non-climate control sound inferior. So the way I do this is I use home comparisons. In other words, I tell the customer that climate control is like storing in your living room. Non-climate control is like storing in your garage. And oftentimes what we'll do is we'll sell a combination of climate and non-climate control. But if you overemphasize climate control too much, it makes your non-climate control sound inferior, and that's really not the goal of the call. You want to tell about your primary features and benefits, and more importantly, how the customer will benefit from those features. And of course, every storage facility has tons of features and benefits, so that's never a problem. When you're telling about the primary features and benefits, remember that features are facts about your product, but the benefits are how the customers actually derive value from those. So whenever I'm talking about features and benefits, I'll use a technique where I'll say, to keep your items safe, we have video surveillance, resident managers, individual door alarms, computerized gate access. And to save you money, or for your convenience, we offer 24-hour access, a free move-in truck, we'll accept deliveries, you can pay your rent online, and so on. So I actually incorporate that into my presentation by telling them the benefit first, and I'll tell them what features create that benefit. And then another good technique is to say, to help you save money, we're now offering a special of, or we're offering free shelving, or we have a free move-in truck that you can use to move into your storage space. And then there are some features that are really critical. Now, interestingly enough, I've done a lot of sort of anecdotal research over the years, and I have found that video surveillance carries the most influence with customers in terms of their perception of how safe their things are going to be at your storage facility, even though those of us in the business know that individual door alarms are probably the best security measure that we use as an industry. But oddly enough, customers believe that video surveillance is the cat's meow. So you'll notice that even on my website, I put video surveillance on the website, though I do have individual door alarms at most facilities anyway. But video surveillance is something that they understand. So when I'm talking about the features of my property and I'm specifically addressing security, I always will point out the video surveillance, and if I have time, I'll cover the other things as well. So it's important to make a reservation, because public storage, for example, invests millions of dollars every year in pushing customers to make a reservation. Do you think public storage would spend those dollars every year if it didn't work? What most of us have a tendency to do is to be very passive in the way that we market storage space. And we say to customers, well, if you hopefully choose us, and we kind of hope you will, then, you know, I hope to see you, and I hope you come down, and you hope, hope, hope. The reality is that in this market, you've got to push for a reservation because they sound professional to the customer. Customers have become so accustomed to making reservations that they actually expect it. You wouldn't show up at the airport and say, I want a ticket to Seattle. You wouldn't show up to a well-known restaurant on Friday or Saturday night at 6:30 and expect to just walk in and get a table. So people are accustomed to making reservations. The other thing is that they assume the sale and they solicit a commitment from the customer. A lot of the paperwork can actually be done before the customer ever arrives, and reservations show a commitment to much greater customer service. So we need to start disciplining our customers to accept reservations and to make it an expected part of our business. And then in the invitation stage, it's time to ask for the sale. So I say to my customer, in order to save you money, we'd like you to come down and actually look at a space or to look at these 2 storage rooms that we just looked at on the internet because you know more about what you'll be storing. It's important to invite the customer to rent because you always want to create a sense of urgency for the customer to visit the store as soon as possible. This is the stage where I'm going to offer to hold or reserve a space for them. I'm going to give them the office and the access hours, and I'm going to give the customer my website address. If I couldn't motivate them to get on the website on the telephone, I'm going to ask them to visit my website, and I'm going to give them a hint. I'm going to tell them that there's a special coupon. It's on the front page down at the bottom of my website. If you print that out and you bring it in, not only will I give you a free gift, but I'll also give you $20 off or $50 off or whatever happens to be on your coupon. But what I want you to do is to become accustomed to asking for the sale. As an industry and as a nation, we have gotten away from just asking for things. And it's rare that anyone ever asks you for the sale anymore. So invite your customers to rent. Offer to send literature or brochures and be creative. Offer to fax information immediately. Men are especially impressed when you put information in their hands immediately. And one of the best ways to do that is to get their email address and to use it and use it and use it. So direct your customer to your website. And one of the other things that works really well is telling the customer that you'll give them a free gift, no obligation, just for visiting the facility. Now, the way I do that is I offer a shopping spree on packing and moving supplies. I'll tell customers that if they'll just come down and look at a space, no obligation, we won't tackle them, we won't jail them. You know, they can look at a space, they can turn around and leave, but I think they're going to like what they see. And if they come down and they visit my property, I'll give them $20 worth of free boxes. I mean, what the heck, they're going to use boxes anyway, right? So I give them a shopping spree of $20. That actually costs the facility $10, but it's a perceived value of $20. At some facilities, we actually have promotional items like a free tool kit or an insulated cooler or a CD case. The tool kits work really well with men for some reason. I have one friend that swears that he offers a brand new, crisp $10 bill to a customer just to come down and look at a storage space. He says that it's highly effective, and surprisingly enough, he says it does not get abused. When you invite customers to rent, offer directions to your facility. I like to route them around my competitors so that they don't even drive by my competitors. I use major cross streets and landmarks. I tell them if they're going to drive by a competitor. I point that out so that they don't mistakenly just pull in and rent there instead of from me. But what I really like to do is to fax or email them a map to my facility. And then when you close the call out, you want to leave a good impression. So the end of the call should be something like, "Thank you for calling You Lock It, You Lose It Self-Storage." In other words, let the customer hear the name of your company one last time at the end of the phone call. Always allow your customer to hang up first so that you know that the conversation is over. If you tell a customer that you'll do something, always follow up immediately. And then the customer should hear the name of your company one last time at the very end of this phone call. Make sure you put a smile in your voice and use some vocal variety. Keep the rate of speech a little slower on the telephone than you would in person. But a good rule of thumb is to simply match the caller's rate of speech. So if the caller is speaking quickly, then you want to pick up your pace. If the caller is perhaps an elderly person and they're talking a little slower, then you want to slow things down. So then there are some golden rules of successful sales that I want you to think about. Number one, be enthusiastic about your product. Yeah, the economy is not so good now, and our industry has seen a decline, and we have some vacancy. But it's not time to panic because we actually have some things working in our favor. We don't have a lot of new competition coming in anymore. The customers that are storing today are not the customers that are electing to store. They're the customers that must store. And so oddly enough, even though the economy has faltered, the actual rise of delinquencies that we all expected to happen as a result of this economy hasn't been there. My delinquency rates are about the same as they were when the economy was going full tilt. Be professional. One of the best ways to be professional is to look professional, which means you've got to invest some time and effort into creating a website that actually has some pizzazz and that actually works for you. What most of us do is we create a website and then we never touch it again and we don't use it, but we somehow think that people mysteriously find it. You want to be customer service oriented. Now is the time to turn on the charm, and you've got to sell your product. You've got to sell your product because in the customer's mind, your product sounds just like everyone else. You need to know your competitors. You need to know their strengths. You need to know their weaknesses, and you need to find a competitor that you really like and trust, and you need to become their friend so that you can start sharing information. Learn to listen. Obviously, you know how to do this because you've sat here now for almost an hour and listened to me drone on about this. So learning to listen is really critical because customers will always tell you what they want if you'll take the time to listen to them. Personalize each conversation. One of the best ways to do that, and I've actually sat at the facilities and used this technique myself, when I'm guiding them around the website and showing them all the neat things that the website has, I get excited. They hear that. They think we're an exciting place to store. Guess what? They rent from us. Always use good telephone manners. Try to use layman's terms. And lastly, you can be aggressive without being manipulative. Unfortunately, too many of us associate being aggressive with being manipulative. And using good, solid sales techniques where you say to the customer, I want your business, is not being manipulative, it's simply being aggressive. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you for the time that you've spent with me today, and I'll take any questions that we have for the remaining few minutes.
Okay, wonderful. Let me get to the questions we have today. Okay, let's see. Tom, what is your opinion on joining and supporting state self-storage associations?
I think statewide self-storage associations have a better handle on what the issues are in your local state, because the issues that I see in California are not the same issues that I see in other states, like Indiana, for example, where I have a facility. But I do a lot of consulting in other states. So every state is just like a little neighborhood. They all have their own issues and questions that come up, especially legislatively. So I would encourage you to become actively involved in your state association.
Okay, next question is, many times the customer calls in and says they are only getting prices right now. Is it okay if you have caller ID to get their phone number from the ID and then do a follow-up call with them without personally asking them for a phone number? What do you recommend?
I would call them back, and I wouldn't apologize for it, but I would call them back and say, you know, you called me yesterday. You sounded like a very sweet lady, and I was just checking back to make sure if there was anything else I could do for you or any other questions that I could ask. Now, occasionally you're going to have a customer that's upset about that. But the reality is that if you say it the right way, most people like being significant. Significance is one of the primary driving motivational factors in all of our lives. And so I think if you say it the right way, I don't see anything with that. That is what I call an aggressive technique. I don't see it as being manipulative at all.
All right, next question. Do you feel we are competing more with people's garages than we ever have before? Free storage option seems to be growing in our area.
Yes. Yeah, see, at one time, actually for a long time, when I first got into this business, people stored everything that they owned, Poppy. And over the years, what's happened is that the self-storage facility has become an extension of the home. And as a result, you also saw that cars became more valuable. Not only did cars become more expensive, but there was a bigger investment in automobiles, but they were nicer automobiles. So about in the mid-'80s, all the way up until just a few years ago, we saw customers actually taking everything out of their garage and putting it in storage because they wanted to park the BMW and the SUV in the garage. What we're seeing now is that many of those people, because they're servicing debt, many of those people have taken some of those items and just thrown them away. Matter of fact, a lot of managers get customers that walk in every day right now, and they say, I just don't want my stuff anymore. You can have it. And of course, we don't want it. But what's happening is they're throwing some of those items away, and then they're moving them back into their garages. Those are the customers that didn't really need storage. They were, I call them electors. They were electing to use self-storage, and they represent a large part of our vacancy right now.
Okay, next question is actually a comment. Tom, this has been a really productive webinar, so thanks so much for putting it on.
You betcha. And I want to encourage all of you to, Tom doesn't have all the answers, but I can show you some of the things that I work on. So I want to encourage all of you to use your website as a powerful tool. The pictures don't even have to look pretty right now. Just get them on there. And then you can always tweak your website and you can change it. Because if you want people to look at your website and to sort of connect with you, you have to keep your website changing all the time. If they keep coming back and your website never changes, then they won't visit you anymore. So you've got to be dynamic, you've got to be proactive, and don't let this blip in the economy get you down. As an industry, we will weather through this, and times will be good again. And I want to thank everyone for taking the time to sit in on this webinar today.
All right, we have a lot of questions that came in that we did not have time to answer. Tom will personally answer each and every one of those. Several of you are asking about getting copies of the presentation. We will be sending you an email with information about the archived presentation so you can view it at your convenience. We'd like to, as Tom said, thank everyone for attending. We hope we provided some useful information for you today. And once again, you will receive an email by Monday with a link to the archived presentation, along with a very special offer for Tom's new book, The Key to Success, How to Manage Self-Storage. So make sure you watch for this in your email box. Last but certainly not least, for more information about our upcoming webinars, please visit our website at ministoragemessenger.com. Our next webinar will be held on December 17th. It will be sponsored by Universal Management, and the topic is The Hat Lady Speaks, Marketing Self-Storage by Ann Ballard. Again, visit our website for information on past webinars, future webinars, and products from Minico. Thank you to everyone for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the day.